Now, our top story this morning. Doubt is being cast on Russia's claims that it will significantly cut back its activity in northern Ukraine.
The move comes off the back of peace talks yesterday. They continue in Istanbul today, in which both sides said there was progress.
Russia's Deputy Defence Minister, who was in Istanbul, said that the drawdown of troops was to create the necessary conditions for further negotiations.
However, Moscow's lead negotiator clarified that this does not amount to a ceasefire, but despite evidence of Russian troops withdrawing, Defence Secretary Ben Wallace slapped down claims, saying Putin must think we were born yesterday.
The White House, the Pentagon and the Ukrainian government were also sceptical of the announcement, suggesting that the move is designed to mislead and allow time for Russia to regroup. OK, let's now talk to Defence Editor Robert Fox from the Evening Standard on all of this. What do you think, Robert? Is this a ploy? Are they stalling to regroup, or do we take this seriously?
Well, I'll answer your question with a question. Who do they think they're fooling? Who was this remark aimed at? Because it certainly hasn't deceived the Ukrainians. It is quite clear they need a pause because both sides are pretty exhausted. And the Russians, if I can put it like that, with very bad equipment failures, problems with morale, they seem more exhausted than the other side. They haven't made the progress that they declared they would. Part of the announcement, of course, is that phase one of the special operation is over. It can't be true that they're still keeping forces around Kiev. And, of course, for Putin to succeed in pushing out the Zelensky regime, which is what he wants, and to write down Ukraine as an independent country, he has to get to Kiev. So wait for that. But I think they've got real technical problems, which we could possibly go into a bit. OK,
so just give us a summary, if you will, of what happened in Turkey yesterday. I mean, we heard President Erdogan saying the world is waiting to hear news of peace. But it looks as though we're a long way still from that. I mean, what are the Russians saying? They're saying they're focusing now on the liberation of the Donbass.
Well, they've got to say something, haven't they? Because they've not liberated much. They are semi-occupying, they're causing an awful lot of damage, particularly to human flesh. They're killing a lot of people, and a lot, as we know, of those are civilians. But we see those marks on the maps. We've all seen the maps, and the red marks haven't been moving that much for the past 3 weeks. But President Erdogan, like him or loathe his style, he's a very, very important figure in this.
Why?
Because he is saying to the Russians, I'm your neighbour, I'm on your doorstep, and privately, I don't like at all what you're doing, like turning the Black Sea into a Russian lake. And he's been involved. He's been very close to the Russians. They bought Russian defence equipment. But it was Turkish equipment that did so well in Azerbaijan against the Armenians, which was a shock to the Russians. And it's the Turkish drones, not very expensive, very effective, that are causing an awful lot of damage for the Ukrainians against Russian tanks.
You say there's not much advance in the red areas on the map, but then that probably means it's becoming more clear as to what way this is all going to finish with annexations in the east, is it not?
There's very little idea how it's going to finish, because I think that this is where it's not got into the headlines yet. It's getting into the defence ministries, the foreign ministries. This is a long war. And what we're looking at, I think there will be ceasefires, but there have been ceasefires before. And what the Western Alliance, NATO, EU, G7, must be very careful about is that they, in the way that they frame the ceasefires, I don't want to be too fancy about this, but they may be writing the recipe for further long wars. Russia is talking about all kinds of activities. For instance, the papers are full of the push that Russia is making strategically, possibly big mineral finds there in the Arctic now, for example. Russia is feeling the pain from sanctions, but it is still very, very powerful. And Russia, contrary to what people have been saying, is frightening China at the moment. So I think we've got a mess which will go on through the summer. It'll be dotted with ceasefires. But I think this war, the confrontation with Russia, is generational.
What do you mean frightening China?
It frightens China for this reason. China, it obviously is very, very worried about social stability, hence COVID, the lockdown, total lockdown of Shanghai.
Yeah.
China needs to trade. It needs to be open to the world. It needs to be open to two blocks, above all, US and Europe. Anything that shuts that down, anything like the sanctions imposed on Russia coming their way, even in the short term, powerful that they are, would be real trouble. But China needs Russian oil and gas, more and more and more of it.
I just want to ask you about sanctions. You mentioned a moment ago there have been concerns overnight from government here that France and Germany might want to start peeling back on some of those if Putin agrees to taking no more territory. That would be a worrying development, wouldn't it?
It would be worrying. They've all got the three principal Europeans, as we now have to say, now that Britain is out, they've all got a soft spot for Russia for different reasons. Germany, we got much too close because of energy requirements. Macron, to make France and Europe different from America, was always close. And Italy, most of all, is dependent on Russia. I think that they will push very hard on this. But funny enough, the little guys are no longer the little guys in Europe. It's very interesting. We are fascinated by what they're saying and doing about Russia. Poland, Finland, the Nordic countries, and even Bulgaria and Romania. And actually, if they press too hard on going the soft pedal, Paris, Rome, and Berlin, the other guys are saying, well, what is EU solidarity about? Because they'll be hard over about this, because they, more than the big guys, seem to realise that this is a long war.
Robert, fascinating listening to you. Robert Fox is the defence editor for the Evening Standard. Thank you very much indeed, my friend. Thank you.